Okay, Torin. Okay. I can see in your bio that you prepared and support policymakers in running effective climate assemblies. What do you mean about effective?
That's a great question. So first of all, um, there's been more than 200 climate assemblies held in Europe, more than 800 in the world, and that's just around climate. So there's a lot of experience now around how to organize citizens' assemblies of various kinds. And that means we're getting really good at doing the assemblies. We know how to make the processes meaningful. We know how to make the people who engage in them have a great experience. But very often we still lack seeing actual impact from assemblies. So you have these people investing hours and hours on making really good recommendations, but the recommendations somehow are not always getting treated with the proper respect or the proper attention from politicians or from public authorities. So when we say effective, what we're really meaning is, yes, we want them to be run well, we want them to be meaningful, we want the people who are in them have a great time, but we also want them to have impact. These are exercises not just for the sake of themselves. They're designed because we want to somehow impact the political system. So when we're talking of effectiveness, we are really talking about making sure that they're impactful.
Do you think it's a good tool, assembly to to do pedagogy about climate justice?
Well, climate assemblies or citizens' assemblies about other topics too have an amazing ability to engage people. So when people are in these assemblies, they become typically very committed to whatever it is they're talking about. It's one of the few tools we have that really allows people also to change their perspective or change their point of view. But doing these kinds of deliberative processes where people are talking with people who have other opinions and where you're exchanging viewpoints, you're hearing from other lived experiences, that has a very, very particular ability to make you change your perspective, like few other things can. So yes, citizens' assemblies are amazing for getting people to be in a deeper relationship with the things that they're talking about. Another side of this, of course, is that citizens' assemblies overall have this challenge that they're often in little bubbles, so the people who are in them are having this amazing experience, but they're not always heard about or talked about in the wider public. So this is, of course, a bit of a tension, You're having these amazing experiences, people are loving them and they're learning a lot, but no one in the larger public actually knows they're going on. And for citizens' assemblies to really be meaningful, we have to bridge that gap. We have to find a way so that the amazing experience people are having in the assemblies are also talked about and discussed by people who are not in the assembly.
How can we include the voice of your people in this kind of institutional process? Mm. Well,
There's a particular issue underlining a lot of the work done with climate change, which is that it's an issue that transcends generations and it transcends responsibilities of people that were in the past and acted without knowing what they were doing, and the people right here now who have a chance to do something, and then the future generations who live with the consequences, right? Very often we're talking about the unheard voices when we organize assemblies, So you invite people into the room, but you can't invite someone into the room who hasn't been born yet. Or you can't necessarily invite animals or nature into the room and have them talk about the consequences of climate change. But what you can do is you can give the people who are actually in the room a chance to look at things from that perspective. And we've seen experiments with this in various ways, where you're trying to give voice to people who are not in the room. And that's super important.
yeah, I haven't tried doing that myself, but there's some interesting experiments happening with it.
For example, in Japan, there are people working with the perspective of future generations. I can't actually speak to that example, but I don't know the details well enough. Maybe I shouldn't say that. But what I can say is that there's an experimentation starting in this field of practice around what other ways you can work with untangible things that are not present within the room itself. For example, there are experimentations with scenarios, having people work with a scenario where It goes in one direction or another direction, and which scenario are you interested in creating? And what would it require if you wanted to make that scenario come true, as opposed to another one? And there are experimentations being done, adding theatrical elements, so having people enact things around the kind of future they want to see, so they're embodying it and feeling it and experiencing it. So there are various things being tested and experimented on, and this is a work in progress. There's a lot of learning needed to be done to get to a point where we really know how to have those conversations.
Problematizing things or it's a good thing.
I have a core belief that organizing citizens' assemblies is about what we call the deliberative element of the process. And by deliberative, what we're really talking about is people meeting other people and having real human interactions. So the core, in my opinion, to a quality assembly is that people actually meet each other face to face and interact with each other face to face. That has a particular quality, and it allows people to see the emotional reactions of people, the facial expressions of people, etc. So for a deliberative process, human interactions are key. We can also use other types of digital tools to support. We've done that when we've worked with international groups speaking many languages, integrating abilities, for example, for simultaneous translation or interpretations. We've seen it for working with data. So if we wanted data from an outside group, you can do interesting things with data that you can feed in as evidence to a group. But this is work in progress. A lot of these things are being tested and tried in various ways. But again, back to my opinion, I think it should never compromise the human-to-human interaction at the core of a citizen's assembly.
What do you think it's what are you feeling about the deliberative democracy?
Well, I think deliberative democracy has a beautiful ability to teach people that their voice matters. So again and again, when we've organized assemblies, what we always see, I think this is almost without fail, is that the people who've been in an assembly start to shine at some point during the process. When they realize that someone is actually listening to them, that their voice matters, it changes people. And I think there's something quite magical about that. A word for that is efficacy or self-efficacy. And we sometimes even say democratic efficacy, the belief in your own abilities to take part in a conversation, to be a part of democracy. Citizens' assemblies trains that and builds that. Or I should say maybe it reacquaints people with the fact that it's inherent in them. We all have a voice. We all have opinions about the society we're a part of. And citizens' assemblies allows people to give those opinions voice. And I think that's quite beautiful.